Hey everyone, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, and today I'm hanging out with special guest at Gen Con, Ryan Schapals. And today we're going to talk about how to get new people into playing role-playing games. Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. All right, Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody, what you do, where people can find you. Go to town.
All that good stuff. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for having me here, Ted.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. The last time I talked to you was I think about a year ago. So, my name's Ryan Schapals. I work at Monocle Society, writer, producer, journal manager, Making Weave. It's a storytelling game where you use tarot and you use an app to generate adventures of all sort of genres. So everything from the fantasy of goblins are jerks to sci-fi to cyberpunk. All that good stuff is in there with the app. It makes it all accessible, which is why this turned out to be something I really wanted to talk about. This is something I've been thinking about a lot and been passionate about all my life. Is I've always wanted to reach out to the people who don't think they play RPGs, or they're like, RPGs aren't for me, or I don't know, or it's the person who's I'm really curious, but I've always been intimidated. Those are the people that I want to play games with the most.
There are so many role-playing games that are out there that people can choose from, and a multitude of genres. I mean, they've been out there before, but it's far more accessible today. With streaming, you don't have to worry about being able to find a game. No. You can get into a game anytime that you really want, and whatever genre you want. And then we have all the things that realistically are nerdy or nerd adjacent that are massively popular.
Oh yeah, millions and billions of dollars now, right?
So many people are familiar with Dungeons & Dragons. It is the most popular role-playing game that's out there.
Right.
But it's not the only one, and you can go to these other things, be all right, well, let's try something that's a little bit less difficult for a new player to understand. But if you're talking about wanting to get someone into D&D, and you're not certain about what's really out there, all right, well, what do you do that's tangential to D&D?
Well, and that's really interesting. You made two really good points that I want to follow up on. I mean, the obvious one is finding those popular culture touchstones. I think that's a really, really smart way to get people in the game. But I think there's also this other component, which is making sure people know that Dungeons and Dragons isn't the only RPG. And the reason I say that is because it's great that Dungeons and Dragons is having this surge, because it brings everyone up. It's good for the entire industry, no matter what RPG you're making. But there's a double-edged sword here, right? Because it also means that we are having this effect where people might think Dungeons and Dragons is all role play, and so unfortunately that can exclude some people who are really potentially really love improv, really love storytelling, but they don't. What if they don't like fantasy? And if they think D&D is the only role-playing game, then they're going to think that it's all fantasy, and they're going to think it's probably primarily combat-based, because that's one of the things that D&D excels at. And it's not that you can't do other stuff, it's just there's going to be some fighting, and that's not what everyone is about. And I love systems that allow me to play adventures that are in modern times. I like to, maybe just go a little retro, go 80s. I want to play something where maybe combat is less of a thing, and maybe there's just less dice, because that's another thing too. First of all, when you've got D20s, D8s, D6s, D12s, that is something that if you were, if you're not part of the core RPG group, those are confused. You're what are these contraptions? Why do they make these dice? You may have never seen a D20 or D12 ever in your life, or God, a D4. What an abomination! D4 doesn't make anyone want to play RPGs.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for, a simple system, Open Legend is one that you can step into and be it's non-genre specific.
Right.
You have the ability to say, all right, well, I want to create this type of character and play in this type of world. The character creation is very simple.
Right.
You can go in a lot of directions with it. So, that's another one that I would push in front of new players to see if they might be ready for something more complex like D&D.
Absolutely, and I mean that's kind of the approach we're taking with Weave, and it's really not just about Weave because I have a great love for it. But I got to talk about Weave since I'm working on it, right?
Well,
like
Nerdarchist Dog, like he
kind of seemed to like it.
He is all about this game, and at some point in time, like he's gonna be like, "We're gonna play this," so like it's gonna happen.
Yes, you all should, and we should all play well here. But that's not here or there. But I think one of the things that's going on with this game that makes it so approachable is that you're only ever rolling 6 dice. Max, and the dice of course have symbols that correspond to the 4 suits, which are your strengths, whether they're flames, gales, brooks, or stones, which represent your intelligence, dexterity, charisma, and strength, right? And so those kind of things you can make it more accessible, and then you can have like we've got advanced as well. So then when you're ready for stage 2, like here we've created another smaller step to get people into a more complex game where it's like now it's not just draw on your talents and your backstories to say you can do whatever you justify. There's a very specific effect, and I think building more of those baby steps into games is something I want to see from more games. To really give people a strong introduction, and we definitely see this. Like this is something great with like intro modules. Obviously, are made to get new players in, but I think always remembering that there are people who've never played these games and maybe they've only seen their friends play them, and always considering them, because the cool thing is like if you're making games, like this is awesome. There's still so many people left who like could be buying RPGs, and like that should be really exciting. And like having, first of all, just like being the person who intros someone to their first RPG, I think is just one of the coolest feelings. It's like they have no idea what can happen.
I have to admit, there's definitely a lot of love there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have been playing RPGs for more than half of my life at this point in time. I have a 10-year-old, I have a 6-year-old,
yeah.
and both of them have already experienced RPGs. Nerdarchist Dave, his son at 13.
Mm-hmm.
He was gaming regularly with us, and he played Mutants and Masterminds, he played D&D, and like it was one of those things that he really loved. So I've seen it from both sides. I see promising role-playing futures
potential
for these kids. But we still need to get them that one step further. Now is a great time because we have all of these content creators in a variety of different game styles, and are different games and different styles streaming online. And Nerdarchy's got a whole bunch of games of D&D and a handful of other systems up on our channel. But I mean, even apart from ourselves, like we see the great success of Critical Role.
Oh yeah.
And
everyone sees it now. Like it's like whenever there's an article about streaming, they're going to talk about Critical Role. How can you not?
And if you find that there's a streamed game that you like the rules and you're willing to give it a shot, you can go online and you can find someone to play this game with.
When you're first learning how to like be a GM and how to be a player, like you're gonna make mistakes. There's gonna be like awkwardness. There's gonna be like dead air. These are all part of the process. And yeah, it's uncomfortable when it happens. I hate it. But that's all part of the process. These are all things you learn from, and you should don't expect yourself to be a Matt Mercer right away. You got to work your way up a little bit. You have your own style. Matt has his own style. Some people are really gonna be very super into mechanics. People are gonna be into the story. But then even when you break it down, the story focus, right? Like some people are gonna be into the characters or the setting. They want to show you everything about the world. Like that's another reason to it's great to see Critical Role, but check out the other channels. Make sure you're seeing what everyone else is doing, because other DMs, other GMs have a style that they might show you something that you've never seen before. You might have thought there's a one way to be a GM, and there's not. There's really not. I think as long as people at your table are having a good time and they keep coming back, then I think you're doing it exactly right.
But so if you're a player who's out there looking, I want to get into the crunch.
Mm-hmm.
I want the combat. I don't care about the role playing. There's games out there for that. Old school Dungeons and Dragons. That's what it was. It was a dungeon crawl. They didn't really care about towns and whatever have you. You went in and you got the monsters and the magic items, and you went on to the next dungeon. That's how it worked. But as people wanted to do more, as players began to interact with each other, it's like, oh, we can take this a step farther. Now 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, talks about the 3 pillars.
It's in a sweet spot.
You've got your exploration, you've got your role playing, and you've got your combat, and you can have a focus on any one or multiple that you want. There's many games online where you can have that you can watch the streamed games where there is no combat the whole entire session. Mm-hmm. Some Saber Dice sessions are that way.
Yep.
some Critical Role is that way. I've done a handful of sessions that way since then. So like, if you want the exploration games, if you want to, have things where, okay, there's some hazards, there's some things to figure out, there's puzzles, you can get into that. I don't need to fight monsters.
Right. I think the key thing is like, you can have conflict without combat. Right.
And getting into this level of detail, getting into this where you focus on whatever pillar or pillars you want, I think that is that much easier to get new players in. Okay, you're afraid of stepping into a character's shoes. Fine, you don't have to talk. Let's just do the mechanics. Let's get in there. Oh, you care about the visualization? All right, let's do an exploration game. You can go and investigate this grand world. You're going to explore a whole new continent. There's not going to be people there. There'll be some monsters, there'll be some animals, and you can see it all. Run from whatever you think is too powerful, and you'll be fine. And you focus on that element. You want a role playing? Fine. Let's do a political game. There's no combat whatsoever. Everything's going to be in town, and it's all going to be conversations, within the kingdom.
Can you imagine a West Wing RPG? That would be so intense. Oh my God! You just saying the words political RPG. I was like, why does that not exist?
So like, you can really go in any direction you want with it. So there is really no reason that if you are tangential to nerd, that you're not willing to, give this a try in some way, shape, or form.
You want to tailor it for your player's experience. Obviously, you should have fun too as your storyteller. But like, what I think you're getting at here is that you want to think about what are the needs and desires of the group. Sometimes it might be a homogenous group that all is like, yeah, we just want to kill stuff and get loot. But then maybe you'll have people all over the place, and it's like, I see this conversation kind of come up a lot on Twitter about what are the sort of basic things you can do to make sure people are having a good time, and I just say like, oh, just talk to your players, like ask them what they want out of it. And you know what? That's a little tougher with new players though, right? Because they might not have the language yet to describe what they want. And so, you made me think about this where like, I remember playing with people and I'm trying to help them get into their first character. And I'm like, for me personally, I like to do like a weird voice because that allows me to get like distance from myself. But I'm like, but some people actually, that's going to make them really uncomfortable to do that.
Remembering to do a voice every time that you talk in character. It's a commitment. It's work, yeah.
And I'm kind of curious about for you, like if you have some of those kind of questions that you have when you're dealing with a new player and you're just trying to feel out what they like if they don't know what they like, because that's a whole new challenge.
Well, that's one of those things that it requires a patient conversation.
Yes.
And not everybody is willing to, okay, I'm gonna toss off this human coil and I'm gonna be a dwarf, or I'm gonna be a tiefling. Like, well, you can be a human. You know how humans are, But there's people who are like, no, if I'm gonna do this, I want to do it right. I want to do it. I want to be different. I want to be something else. And it's like, well, you can get into a voice, you can not get into a voice. You can have somebody sit next to you who's a veteran player that can help you with mechanics, that can help you with whatever it is that you feel that you need to do. But ultimately, most role-playing problems or RPG problems, to me, it all starts with a conversation. So, like, I'll sit there away from the table, away from everybody else, and you have a conversation with that player and say, okay, what do you like? What do you not like? What are you looking for?
Right. It says so much about them, right? Like, it's like if someone says Buffy or someone says Steven Universe, you just learn so much about them. Yeah.
So get whatever real world, fake world, whatever you can get as a jumping off point to be like, all right, if you get that gateway, you get to know where they're coming from, what they're looking for. Do they want the combat? Do they want the role playing? Do they want the exploration? And it doesn't matter what system. Those three pillars really exist everywhere. And if you get what kind of experience that they're looking for, whether it's focused on characters, non-focused on characters, it really goes in many different directions.
Right, and like sometimes you just gotta change the rules a little bit. Like, I don't, if, in that scenario where you talked about, oh, we got to do combat to get XP, it's like, you know what, you could have also made the choice here as the GM to be like, you know what, you get XP for navigating all these encounters. Like, you're still growing by how you're dealing with these things. And that's something you can do, and like, a lot of people make RPGs, I can't speak for them all, but I think the great majority of them will say they're very happy for you to adapt their game in the way that makes for the best experience.
I don't personally, go by XP.
The book. Yeah.
I do what I want in my games.
Yeah,
because
of course. This was a different GM.
Yeah. So Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us at Gen Con today. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you again?
Absolutely. So if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me. My handle is just RyanSchapals. That is my name. It's a mouthful. Ryan Schapals on Twitter. And please, if you want to talk about games, hit me up on there.
So thank you for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much.
Let us know what you guys think about getting new players into Dungeons & Dragons and other role-playing games down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay nerdy.